And there's some things that a mayor can do on day one. The mayor that we have now decided on when he first was elected that he would run on an issue of stop and frisk, and he decided that this was going to be a policy for the Philadelphia Police Department to use this method to stop and frisk so he can get the criminals in the city of Philadelphia. And in the midst of that policy decision, stops and frisk went from 100,000 a year to 250,000 a year. Then in the 8 years that this mayor has been in place, continuing to push this policy, over 1 million people, in fact 1.5 million people have been stopped and frisked, and 40% of them have been stopped and frisked illegally, unlawfully, and unconstitutionally. And 80% of them are black and brown people. Get that in your head. 80% black and brown people. Now, if you wanted to stop and frisk people and find somebody with contraband and with drugs, I can tell you, you could do that. Just go to the University of Pennsylvania, go to any dormitory, and stay right there and stop and frisk every university student, and you would get some drugs. You would get a whole lot of drugs. And none of them would be black people or brown people. So obviously you got a police department making some decisions about who you're going to prosecute and who you're not. I'm almost done. I'm almost done. I'm almost done. The mayor can make a change. The new mayor can change his policy on the first day he is in the office. He can write an executive order to rid this town of stop and frisk forever. You got to demand that these great candidates decide to end this policy.
This is a very serious issue. Earlier today, when the council candidates were here, I asked the question of all those that have been stopped and frisked here in the city of Philadelphia would stand up. If you're here again, so these mayor candidates know, who have been stopped and frisked by the Philadelphia Police Department, would you please stand on your feet? Thank you. You may be seated. This has been a tough week in that both the passing of an officer that we're told served our city well, and the Department of Justice report on Ferguson that reminded us that there is systemic racism in policing, not only in Ferguson, but throughout our country. The working families, Pennsylvania Working Families has an agenda around restorative justice, around the issues of mass incarceration, and we're going to ask our mayoral candidates to address an issue. First, we want to create an independent review board that investigates police-involved shootings and complaints of police brutality that the Philadelphia Police Department cannot stymie their investigations. Second, on day one, we want the next mayor to do an executive order to end stop and frisk immediately. Third, we want to increase for funds and programs for drug rehabilitation and post-release counseling for jobs, housing, and other supportive services for returning citizens. And then finally, we want to expand non-custodial punishment by use of house arrest and work release programs. Now we'll hear from the candidates. Please tell us where you stand on these proposals and what you would help do to fix Philadelphia's criminal justice system. We will come in the following order: Senator Anthony Williams, Judge Nelson Diaz, Mr. Doug Oliver, and finally Councilman Jim Kennedy. Gentlemen, you each have 2 minutes to answer the questions.
To be direct, yes, I'm going to stop it first. It's not only unfair, it doesn't work. The facts support that. Further, I would also do the executive order, but the executive order is only complemented by a higher rank police commission to make sure that it's executed appropriately. There are a number of things that one can do to provide public safety in this space. One, we certainly need to use technology. Those cameras on cops, but also cameras, mobile cameras for hotspots in the city of Philadelphia that also prevent crime, as well as prevent police officers from getting hurt or arresting the wrong person. We need to be smarter about who we hire so that we don't have a Ferguson type of police department. That means it needs to be diverse and broad. But I want to do this. With my 2 minutes, we approach this as if it's one versus the other. I live in one of those communities that has challenges with safety. That young man who got killed lived 2 blocks from my home. I'm not taking this moment to step on his memory. He deserves to live just like, and by the way, black lives do matter. He was also black. So I don't think we should be contrasting communities that want policing versus those who think every police officer or police process is inappropriate. Come to my neighborhood and understand that we respect police officers, we just want them to treat us fairly. Be trained effectively. Feel safe in our communities. We will invite them into our homes. I can deliver on that commitment because I've lived that experience. And by the way, I'm not talking because I'm black, because I'm a Philadelphian. You don't have to be African American to feel the pain of injustice in America. That's what makes America great, if you step into my space. So please don't use this moment to denigrate a young man who lost his life or castigate those who serve, or countless others across the city of Philadelphia, because I think we need to respect all of us. We all live in this space, police officers and those who are not police officers, those who committed crime, and I have to trust them. There, but for the grace of God, no I who did get caught. I'm not a hypocrite. And I appreciate the fact that you're raising it, but I think we need to be smart about how we do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Williams. Judge Diaz.
For 45 years, I have been involved in the protection of people in the city. When the Young Lords Party and the Black Panthers were involved in the moratorium on the war, I was there. I was protecting and having people make sure that the police did not abuse our folks. When I became a committee member of the Bar Association, I had translations of all legal documents that were performed. When I was myself stopped and frisked, I became a judge and knew that some cops are not that willing to understand our plight. That if you live in a community where there's a high crime area, everybody gets stopped and frisked. That is not the way the Constitution says. You have to have the right reasonable suspicion. And I've fought it in the courts, and I've fought it with my own life. It's important to know, who do you trust from the candidates that you have all around us that will protect your rights and your willingness? You've got to look at people's records. You can't listen to the continual rhetoric of people who say, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do the other because it's politically right. We've been doing it all of our time because we've had major police abuse in the city. Now, I want to express my condolences to the police officer who died this week. And every time they put their lives on the line. So one of the things that I just care about is we have to have community policing. We have to have the police be part of the community. You've got to know them, they've got to know you, and you've got to establish a relationship. We've got to get them to do PAL programs so that the kids are no longer adversaries with the police. Play basketball, play football, be a part. Say, hey, Joe, you're in the neighborhood, and so we're going to work this together. We're going to wipe out crime together. That is the importance of having community policing. In addition to that, we have to make sure that all of our organizations are respected. When we see something and we tell something, they say, hey, you're not the person that has the credibility. Our community has to make sure that we have credibility with the mayor's office and with the police when we see what problems occur in our city.
Thank you, Judge Diaz. Mr. Oliver,
I'm not even sure where to start with this one. There's so many places. But again, education, jobs, fairness. And the fairness issue obviously comes into play when we're talking about our community. I also, too, want to express my condolences to the family of Officer Wilson. He was one of the best, and I think he represents the overwhelming majority of our police department. I have a tremendous amount of respect for our police department. But we have been dealing with this issue for far, far, far too long. The first time that I recall being stopped and frisked was as an 8-year-old at Happy Hollow Playground, just playing around. The police officers came and made us all of us, playing ball, sit down. They ran through our pockets. They didn't take anything from me, and I didn't know that that wasn't the way it was supposed to be. I went home and told my mom like it was fun. She was livid, because it was wrong then, and it is still wrong now. I just want to address some of the specific things from the Working Families platform, and generally speaking, I don't have a problem with any of it. I support it all, but specifically, I do think we do need an independent review board. It's kind of tough to believe that the fox is watching the hen house, and it's nice, even if perception only, to know that somebody is there who's willing to go and ask the tough questions and to hold folks accountable. That which is measured can be improved, and I think looking at what the police department does from an outsider's look is important. Stop and frisk, I think it should end. But really the issue isn't the term stop and frisk, it's really that spirit of disrespect in our neighborhoods. And so part of me is concerned that if we just get rid of stop and frisk, but we don't address that underlying attitude of disrespect in the neighborhoods, then it'll just manifest itself somewhere else. Traffic stops, pullovers. I don't know what the terms are, but it's certainly the respect in our community. We can stop and frisk, and then we'll be asking to stop something different. So ultimately, at the end of the day, we have to address that attitude of disrespect. I think community policing, Mr. Diaz spoke on it, I think most of us will agree that the broken windows theory, community policing, getting police officers to understand in the communities where they are and to get the communities understanding that we need our police officers there, we got to respect them, is important, and nothing like this most recent situation highlights that. Lastly, body cameras. I do support those. I think that technology can be used to start answering some of the questions that we all have. And lastly, we have to do something for the 300,000 people living with arrests and convictions. I've had countless stories of people who share their experiences, and I think we have to create a streamline from prisons to jobs, because until people have jobs, we don't have a great city.
When I was a teenager, my parents would say to me, if you're in another neighborhood or you're in Center City and you have a problem, find a police officer. That's not what a lot of parents in our city tell their kids. Find a police officer. It's kind of avoid a police officer. I've never been stopped and frisked. My 25-year-old son, who's a younger version of me, more handsome, has never been stopped and frisked. It's unconscionable for a young person to be going to work or coming from school, to potentially be stopped 3 times in a month because of who he is and what color of his skin. That does not make officers safer. It makes them less safe, because the community now doesn't trust nor want to cooperate with the police. That young man's attitude towards the police is not going to be a good one. I did something recently that I never thought I'd get done, and that was the decriminalization of marijuana. That has nothing to do with marijuana. That's right. It has to do with a criminal arrest record. Amen. A criminal arrest record on a young person, especially a person of color, is going to stop them from getting a job, keeping a job, going to college, or getting in the military. When I look at the statistics, 4,200 people last year were arrested for possession of a small amount of marijuana. 83% were people of color. Now, if you want to find white people smoking weed, let's go down to the parking lot at the Link or the tailgate, and you'll see a lot of white suburban people smoking weed. The government should not be putting things in people's way to make their lives unbearable. They need to put things behind them to make them meet their potential. As far as the individual issues discussed, independent review board, yes. Stop and frisk, gone. I do believe we need better training in our academies when it comes to having our recruits understand differences in neighborhood mores and differences in neighborhood experiences. One time in the 70s when I was growing up, every cop looked like me. We've changed that, thank God. We need to do more to make more diversity in our department. I think supervisors on the street need to be trained better also, to make them understand that the first contact you have with somebody is what sets the tone for the rest of what happens.
Thank you, Councilman Kelly. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our final part of our platform that we're going to share today has to do with taming corporate power. I began this section earlier today by reminding us that Philadelphia belongs to Philadelphians. Let me say that again. Philadelphia belongs to Philadelphians. It should be the people in the homes, the row homes, the twin homes, the homes all across the city of Philadelphia that are the ones that are pressing for policies, and that the ones that the mayor and city council members should be listening to, not the corporate oligarchs that are busy padding corporate PACs. Amen, somebody? Amen. We need to make sure that Philadelphia is run by Philadelphians for Philadelphians so that Philadelphia can thrive. Corporations control Philadelphia's political system. They do this through campaign donations, buying access when policies and laws are crafted. Our next speaker is going to be Ms. Sheila.
From across the city. And I have been a Philadelphia resident all my life. I love Philly. But what angers me is that this city is no longer one of brotherly love, but instead is corporately love. I've watched how our Philadelphia leaders have been selling out our neighborhoods to Temple and Comcast, and these institutions don't even pay their fair share in taxes. I'm tired of it. And how dare our Philadelphia leaders give a 10-year tax abatement to big-time developers, but I can't even get help when I'm short on my rent and my food stamps run out. I'm mad at this. I'm tired of seeing my boys and their friends suffer from a lack of resources in their schools, and the teachers and principals are overburdened because they're doing dual duties of being a nurse, a counselor, and everything. This is not right. It is not right at all. I'm so pissed off about the lack of resources in school. My children need help for homework, and they can't even bring a book home because they don't have enough books in the classroom for us to do. This is not right. You automatically holding my family down. It is not right. I see my family members and friends struggling with mental illness and drug addiction, and when they go to these city services for help, they get a return date sometimes weeks and months away, and you want to tell them to come back, they got to deal with that issue right now. That is not right. And I'm sick and tired of seeing people hurting, and the peoples that we elected into office turn their backs and ignore us like we don't even live here. Like this is not our Philadelphia. Well, I dare each of you, each one of you, okay, that it's the people that got you elected. It's the people that work for you. And it's not right. This is what I'm fighting for. I'm fighting for a Philadelphia that is fair to me. A project mother from North Philadelphia, Tefton Master, where I live at. I need people fighting for me. I need people that is
be for real Philadelphians. Amen. Amen. So we need to curb corporate influence in our democracy. So we're going to ask the mayoral candidates to respond to the Working Families platform about participatory democracy. 1, we want publicly financed election campaigns for all city electoral offices. Let's get private money out of public elections. Second, we want to bar legislation that privatizes city property or city work currently performed by city employees. Third, we want to fire Wall Street advisors from handling the city pension fund. And finally, we want to enable the city to call back subsidies from corporations that fail to provide jobs or other benefits to city residents. Now, we need to hear from the candidates. Please tell us where you stand on these proposals and what you would do to help hand political influence back to people, not corporations. Now, I'm taking moderator's prerogative here for a moment, in that this is our last question for this afternoon. So I'm going to give each of the candidates 3 minutes to respond, to which they should respond to this question, and then they should wrap up with any final comments. We will be sticking to an adherence to 3 minutes. Let me say that again, 3 minutes. So you have 3 minutes to respond to this question and then wrap up and make your final comments. We will come in this order. Councilman Jim Kennedy, Mr. Doug Oliver, Senator Anthony Williams, and Judge Nelson Diaz. Councilman Kennedy, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Publicly financed elections, I philosophically agree with you, but I am not going to put money into campaigns until we have our schools paid for adequately. When the country fell off the fiscal cliff in 2008, it was done because a lot of bad actors in Wall Street and in our banking community nationally did lots of bad things to people, that blew up people's 401ks, that destroyed people's pensions, that took people's homes away. And not one of those guys ever went to jail. Not one. I could take a fish cake sandwich and no one will lock me up for bribery. But those guys did what they wanted to do, and they put everybody in a bad situation. There's no reason in the world why we should have as much money invested in the banks that we invest our money in now in Philadelphia. Because they don't lend to people who want to buy a house. They don't lend to people who want to start a business. We need to use our own city deposits and put them in institutions that are in communities and will lend to people to buy a home, will lend to people to start a business. They'll lend the money right. They don't get the money back in interest and other things. But when you have $350 million a day sitting in Wells Fargo, something's wrong. Something's wrong. I intend to hold our corporate community accountable for the things that they want from us. I intend to use our airport, as I said earlier, to allow people to unionize and be represented the way they should be represented. And that is leverage that we can use I can use as a mayor. But I think we need to continue to pay attention to when any time a corporation asks for something, we get something back in return that's benefiting the community and people as a whole. I just want to conclude by saying, I want to, first of all, thank you for being here. It's a Saturday, people have things to do, children and other kinds of chores and things they need to get done, but you come out here to listen to us today. I want to thank you sincerely for that, and I really appreciate your consideration in choosing me as your next mayor. Thank you.
First, I want to say to the sister, I don't know if she left or not, but the passion with which she spoke, the things that she was saying, I share her concerns, I share her frustrations, and quite frankly, part of the reason why I'm running for mayor is because I feel those things. I've been campaigning now for about 4 months or so, give or take. It's been a very, very difficult process. The issue of money in campaigns is real, and as the one arguably with the least amount in the bank, I can tell you that corporate influence on mayor's races is real. And while I once looked at it as a handicap, oh man, I don't have money, how am I going to run my race? I now look at it as a sense of independence. I had the ability to make decisions that others might not be able to make because of the influence of corporate dollars. And so it's not a handicap. It's forced me to not spend 6 hours a day making fundraising calls. I spend those hours on subways having conversations with people just like that young lady who spoke a little bit earlier, just like the gentleman who spoke a little bit earlier about his job at McDonald's. This is real, and you don't get to see it when you're making dialing for dollars for 6 hours a day. You can't possibly understand what people are thinking when you're doing it. My time is running out, but I'll say this. We started my campaign as a voter engagement initiative. We knew that 30%, 20%, 18%, and even as low as 10% participation in the city of Philadelphia means that our elected officials have never been accountable to the overwhelming majority of the city of Philadelphia. And big business has been involved from the beginning. I think we have to limit their influence, but I think more important is that we increase ours. We have to get out there and vote. We have to make our voices so we make accountable. Last thing I'll say, as I close, I am not a politician. I never have been one. And I think that makes me a damn good candidate. I'm in church. That makes me a very good candidate for mayor. My apologies. I think it's time that we had a different perspective here in the city of Philadelphia, a fresh set of eyes on the challenges that face us. And with your support, I ask respectfully for your consideration on May 19th. Thank you.
The passion that the young woman spoke with earlier today represents the passion I live with every day. One of my daughters is a single mom, and so the wage issue is a very real issue in my household because without us, she can't get supported. The passion with which she expressed is the same block that Robert Wilson III lived on, which is a working-class block, who's the police officer we talked about earlier, who was shot down by some guys he may have known in a disconnected way. The passion that is reflected in an election where 20% of the people show up is something that all of us should live with every day. The passion comes from my grandmother, my father, my mother, my family, my neighbors that I live with every day. This is not a theoretical experience to me. This is not just a platform to talk about issues. This is a real moment where people can actually provide real change. And it doesn't happen, by the way, by being divided. It's easy to run these campaigns saying, I'm for this person because they're for my position. It's difficult to lead. It's difficult for anyone to run for office and be elected. And I understand the frustration with people who are elected because our problems are almost insurmountable. But I want you to understand something. When I come out my row house, on the house I grew up in as a kid, I am in the heart of it. I don't get to drive to another county. I don't get to drive to another section of Philadelphia. The things I say, the things I feel, the things I reflect, are the things that people tell me every day. Sometimes when people talk to me, they think it's like Tony Williams standing up for Tony Williams. No. It's the single mom. It's the young guy returning. It's the police officer who lives in the hood. It is the fact that we as Philadelphia are greater if we figure out how to unify rather than divide. It is appropriate we're in a place of worship because I think really we should be more than emoting, reflecting. And I hope we will reflect upon the substance of what we say as opposed to the emotion behind what we say. Real answers for real tough solutions. I have never deserted my principles. So yeah, if we can get enough money to support a public campaign, fine, I'll do it. But I'm agreeing with Councilman. We need other issues that we need to provide: schools, jobs, public safety that will require public finance. Policies which are being laid down, most of which are not being executed. The abatement process which we skirted around today, why are we not using abatements to land positions in neighborhoods? Big business should go to neighborhoods so secondary jobs can come to us. Why are we not using the public money in the public people's interest? If you check my legislative history, it's about that. It's all steeped in the history and the legacy of the people I live with today. I hope that people understand that there's a genuineness. I came here today because, not to be popular, not to get the most applause, but because I want people to understand I respect your perspectives. Most importantly, it only gets solved if we collectively work together to resolve it. Thank you. God bless you.
Also want to give you my gratitude. Let's see which one's working. I also want to give you my gratitude for staying here this long. I know you've been here since 10 o'clock this morning, and very few people have that kind of dedication. But I want to change the campaign financing laws in the city. I believe that a system that at least takes all of this corporate money out of it is important. There's a system in New York that works well, that for every $175 that you give, if you're a resident of the city, you get that matched 6 times. That enables you to essentially run a campaign, and Doug Oliver could be having some money so he could run his campaign. I also want to say that I would also develop a requirement that all local contractors with the city have to have incentive that if they hire residents, they will be preferential treatment in terms of contracting, and I would issue an executive order that every contract we have with the city, every contractor is required to pay the $15 wage that we've agreed to today. Everyone should have that, and I have the authority as mayor, when I become mayor, to issue that authority. So they will be making $15 an hour, despite the fact that I have not served in offices like my esteemed colleagues. I just served as a judge, was appointed as a judge, but I've been working for 45 years to make sure that we have equity and that I work for poor people all of my life. I've developed 3 to 4 community development corporations, all of them are successful. I've been able to get them financing, I've been able to get them grants, I've been able to give out of my own. I want to make the city a better city. I want to unite our city, all of the races. You know, I come from, people will say I'm Puerto Rican, but that's because I have Indian, African American, and white in my blood. There's no way I can be prejudiced against anybody, because you'd have to be prejudiced against myself. I want to be your leader because I grew up in the situation where these children are today. They have the ability and the potential. And if we give them the right tools, they will be another Nelson Diaz. They gave me the tools at 15 years old, and I've been fighting ever since so that people who were a heck of a lot smarter than me, who had a heck of a lot of abilities than me, many of them died of HIV, drugs. Many have died in the projects from gun shooting. Many have died because we were involved in gang fights, but because I had mentors, and because I had Leroy Otis who played in the Negro League and coached me, and I became a pretty good ball player, that kept me off the streets. These after-school programs are absolutely necessary. The health programs are absolutely necessary. I'm sorry, but I would say a heck of a lot more, but the reverend who went to school with my daughter, I have to respect him.
We have heard a lot today. We have heard folk express their deepest pain. And my hope is that the candidates that are up here are not dismissing that pain because of the passion that was brought forth, but that they hear clearly, this is the voice of real Philadelphians. We are not paid lobbyists that are going to show up and offer you dinners and trips. We're people who are in real pain, and we have an expectation that our political leaders respond to the pain that's being heard. And if they don't like the passion, don't take the job. So as we all know, municipal elections are upon us for both council and the mayor. We've heard a lot of talk today, but now we've got to get down and get busy and doing the work. We've got to take action to make sure that we elect officials in Philadelphia that are going to care about the working families that exist in our city, to help guide us, to get us energized, motivated, and fired up for the work that's ahead of us. Come on and celebrate with me. Ms. Katie Sitt, Director of PA Working Families, to talk about how we get involved and make this thing happen.
All right, so I want to thank everybody for hanging in until the end, because it has been a long day, and I appreciate that you're all still here. And I want to once again ask the staff and the planning committee to stand up and get a round of applause for helping to pull this event together. So, what are we going to do next, folks? We're going to march out of here. Hopefully, we're going to see you all on April 4th at the Power Day of Action around the anniversary, or the anniversary of the death of Dr. Martin Luther King. I'm going to encourage all of you, as I said before lunch, if you have heard things from these folks that you liked hearing, you should help them get on the ballot by signing their petitions today if you haven't done so already. And you also should get involved in their campaigns or in the organizational campaigns from the organizations that you're all members of to make sure that we get the best mayor and the best city council that are going to be for working families in this city. And I want to take a very quick moment to talk a little bit more about the sort of restorative justice elements of our platform today. Because one of the people that we thought we might be able to have come and tell a story about their life in this city was the mother of Brandon Tate Brown. And folks have talked about her son's death at the hands of the Philadelphia police. The thing that struck me about that story when I first heard about that shooting incident and the incident, or the things that have been going, or the video that may or may not ever come to light, is that about 3 years ago, I was living in Lower Germantown near East Falls, and I had just bought myself a new car, which was, it's always nice to buy a new car. And I was driving home from work, and it was sort of dusk. I had turned on my headlights, but it turned out they weren't turned on all the way. You know how it is when you have a new car, you don't always know how the buttons all work. I'm a technologically savvy person, but on this day, I hadn't turned my lights on all the way. And the thing that Brandon Tate Brown got pulled over for was not having his lights on. And I am, just actually about to park my car on Queen Lane, and a cop pulls me over. And I was like, that's weird. I'm at a stop sign. Stopped. But this cop pulled me over, and he walked up to the side of my car, and he saw me. And, I'm a kind of middle-aged white woman. And he actually laughed. He actually laughed when he saw me because I was clearly not the person that he expected to see in that neighborhood in a car that he was pulling over. And I rolled my window down and I was like, officer, what's the deal? What happened? Why are you pulling me over? And he said, ma'am, did you know that your lights aren't on? And I said, oh, really? That's interesting. And I checked and, I had sort of clicked them halfway on, but not all the way. And I said, well, I'm sorry, it's a new car, I just got it. And he was like, is this your car? And I said, yeah, it's my car. He didn't ask me to see my driver's license. He didn't ask me for my registration. He didn't ask me to prove that I lived in the neighborhood that I said that I lived in. How many of you all would have that experience if you were stopped by the police in a car without the lights on at dusk? Raise your hand if you would have had that experience. One or two, maybe other people, right? But mostly not. Mostly it's people who look like me who get laughed at because the cop is like, you're being kind of ditzy. He left. I got out of my car, and as I got out of my car, I saw 3 more cop cars go by. That were the cars that he had called to come arrest me before he knew I was, a middle-aged white woman who was dizzily driving with her headlights only half on. And I want to have a city where every time somebody is dizzily driving with their headlights only half on, that the reaction of the cop that pulls them over is to laugh and be like, hey, it's probably okay. And not that if you're driving without your headlights on, that you may not go home that day. And I urge all of you to help elect candidates who are going to make sure that we have that city. That we have a city where people live with dignity and respect and earn a decent amount of money and are able to send our children to decent schools, and we can go home safe every single night. And that's what we're going to do by electing the next mayor. and by electing a city council that is a pro-working family city council. So thank you all for coming. If you haven't signed up for our email list or given us your cell phone number so that we can text you later, please do so on your way out. If you need to register to vote, because you have been moved to vote after today's event, we have the voter registration forms in the back. Thank you so much. And thank you. Let's all as well give a round of applause to Bishop Royster for moderating. I think he's done a hell of a job. And now I'll take it.
Let's thank all of our candidates, Judge Nelson, Councilman